2016, a new Philippine president was elected. A nation that was previously disjointed was temporarily celebrating. The promise of getting rid of all the drug abuse and trafficking within just a few months was exhilarating. Finally, the Philippines had a chance to be one of those Southeast Asian countries that everyone in the world can be proud of. However, no one would have expected that the means to achieve this goal would involve taking so many lives. A lot of people didn't think that killing was wrong at all. People that sold drugs, people that bought them, people that were poor, people that were suspected as drug users, people marked by the authorities as drug peddlers or users. These were all the same for them, all marked to be killed. Extrajudicial killings didn't have a smooth run after a year. The amount of death and imbalance in the country urged the return of the ghost of Quezon City, the owl. Something happened in between though. The president's son poisoned him and took the throne. When he was thwarted by the owl, the next one in line, Odette Loreto, took on the seat of power. Nobody really noticed it before, but Odette was also an avid follower of the dead president. Hence, the killings and corruption continued. Only this time, Odette, now the Viper Queen, took steps to extend the life of her new kingdom. All this chaos, unfortunately, made the Filipino people more divided. Naomi was an immediate avid fan of the 2016 president. Somehow, the fact that this particular president was cursing a lot during State of the Nation addresses appealed to her. That was it, really. When it became obvious that this president permitted and promoted killing people, innocent or guilty, she didn't mind. In her head, this would all make sure that her children would be safe. Her feelings about the government at this point never changed. That owl character is a terrorist and an anti-government criminal. In her mind, bad people needed to die. No questions. There can't be two sides of the story. Criminals are born like that, so they need to be eliminated. Naomi was shot through the temple. Her house was ambushed because one of her children were suspected drug users. Most of Naomi's and her family's body parts were stored by Odette. She found new technology that could give her an army that she could use in the near future. Rosalinda would tirelessly share posts about all the wonderful projects and achievements of an administration that lasted from 1965 up to 1986. That beautiful time before people power ruined all of it. Facebook will oftentimes mark her posts as fake information, but for her, these alerts on her phone really weren't believable. She thinks that there's a conspiracy going on, and Facebook and its operators don't know what they're talking about. When she saw the brutality that the new 2016 president was showing, she got really excited instead of being appalled. Finally, this president has what it takes to finish what her favorite president started. She was shot dead walking home by two masked gunmen on a motorcycle. Vigilantes that were inspired by the very president Rosalinda idolized. Annette was Rosalinda's daughter. She shared her mother's views on the world, particularly on her stance on the killings and how justice was supposed to be served. Annette's faith was unwavering. In her mind, the murder of her mother was caused by criminals that were supposed to be killed by the current president's regime. Annette saw the president kiss a fan on the lips on public TV. This turned her on and reinforced her love for this president. Annette was devastated by the death of the president, but she was relieved that the president's very own son was taking over. She hated people that were trying to discredit the president's own son, saying that he really didn't graduate from Oxford. And just like all of the fanatics, they're more focused on the past to try to defend their new hero, Alvin Aguila. The Viper Queen took over, and with that, the whole country and Alvin Aguila's armory and technology. With martial law in effect, she was able to attain near omnipotence, as she unleashed the ancient Capre system created by the Apophis centuries ago. In the middle of all of this, Annette, who also immediately became a loyal Viper Queen follower, gets trampled over by one of the active Capre system giants in Luzon. Annette's body parts are incorporated on at least 15 Viper Queen super soldiers. Jackie is a nurse. She'd seen the effects of drug abuse and had some close calls with robbers. She felt that this new 2016 president would be able to do the actual cleanup needed for these filthy streets. Jackie gave birth to her first child. The father of her child was a co-worker who had different political views. Hence, they didn't end up together. Her child was taken by these masked men in a white van. She immediately reported this to the authorities, but the policemen treated her like an insane raving woman. Another one of those women that overreacts. They assured her that they would be able to find her son. But weeks turned into months, and months into a whole year. There was a news bulletin of a warehouse infiltrated by the owl, and it was full of kidnapped children. Authorities got together and tried to trace the parents and homes of these children. But this was only when they noticed that the owl was going back and forth, taking children back to their homes one by one. As she was watching this on her tablet, she heard the familiar cries of her baby upstairs. It was her lost son, home at last. She looked around to see if the owl was still there. But all there was left in the room was she and her son. This made her realize that there was something so wrong with this whole admin and their current successors. Jackie is within the owl's nest, safe with her son. In the beginning, it was good. The People Power event did what it had intended to do. Years later, she didn't feel as safe. Time has been cruel to Sophia. Now bedridden, she watched in horror as a new president that promoted the same amount of brutality that they had fought against decades ago was sworn in. Sophia kept telling her children to not only keep clear of those drug users and riding in tandem killers and criminals, but also to that masked vigilante called Owl. Her children were avid fans of the current president. They were very well educated. And this is the fact that frustrates her the most. Her children often tell her that she's overzealous and her ideals are completely bent. Sophia watched in horror as the son of the current president took over the whole country and made it worse. Her children at this point were already among the current administration's supporters, hunting down the owl. Every night, she desperately tried to call her children, but the line never gets picked up. Sophia, the bedridden mother, was locked in prayer, wishing that her children were safe as a giant caprese system ripped her house's roof and crushed her to death. Gina was appalled that the newly elected president was an avid follower of a former dictator. She felt that this could be the start of something dark. She feared for the future of her children. She was right. After a few years, the country not only got more and more deadly, but at this point, the president's own son had poisoned him and is now wreaking havoc. But that wasn't the end of it all. What people thought was going to end all of the violence and corruption turned out to be someone that was an amalgamation of all the dictators and human rights violators that had once held the reins over the country. Gina could understand why people loved the Viper Queen. In just a few weeks, the whole country transformed into a dead, grey kingdom. Everyone is mind-controlled, and our children are missing. Gina risked going through the city to try to find them, but she was immediately killed by the Viper Queen's super soldiers. she was out during curfew wearing a mask. This registered her as a costumed individual and was therefore immediately eliminated. Back in the early 70s, Denise's father was saved by the Quago. This stayed with their family for years, always on the side of what's actually right, not on the side of a trendy politician. Denise grew up as one of those very few journalists that had actual integrity. 2018 was a very interesting time of her life. She always knew that the Quago or owl myth was true. But this was the year that she'd actually seen him face to face. She will never forget that time she and the owl met at the stairwell. Denise's son was kidnapped by the fox himself. Beyond devastated, she almost considered going out of the owl's nest just to try and find her son. But Raven, the white lady, and the owl all reassured her that they would find her missing son after a day. Out on the edge of the city, the owl sat on top of one of the buildings, waiting for Raven's report on her search.
See anything?
Wala siya dito.
Sige, okay lang yan. Hanap tayo ng super soldier, tas extract tayo ng location sa kanya.
Combat analyst from the sun, previous super soldier drawing.
Okay, let's see. Bakit mababa yung stealth scoring? Why is the stealth score low?
Chrome armor parts reflect light making you visible.
Sayang. Ang ganda tong chrome parts eh. Okay. Are there options for no? Still no. Next. Next. Oh, wait. Yep. This works.
Settings saved. Stealth score 93%.
Umakit ka na sa taas at tapulsin mo na siya agad. Pagkatapos ito, baba mo dito yung bangkay para sa mahal nating pinuno. Pagpalain ka ng Diyos.